Let's talk about what John Lynch had to say today when it pertained to draft strategy, when it pertained to Brandon Ayuk. Here were the big takeaways. So if you were unable to watch John Lynch, it is pre-draft presser, here are the main things that were talked about. He did confirm. Remember, there was a little bit of a mix-up. Everybody assumed that BA was going to be at these voluntary workouts. Y'all remember that? Like it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be there. Well, he wasn't, and he hasn't shown up the whole time. And that was confirmed by John Lynch, which to me is no surprise. I mean, if you're a player that's about to get paid, you don't want to be at these workouts, getting hurt, what have you. And this is what makes things pretty tough, is as these players are trying to get paid, they're trying to stay in shape, yes, but they're also trying not to get injured so that they don't miss out on millions and millions of dollars, life-changing money. So it makes this scenario tough, especially if it drags on late into training camp or close to the regular season like it did with Bosa. We see these players not maybe have their best season because the contract situation took way too long. And that was something that John Lynch talked about as well. He was asked about that scenario, and he said that he would prefer that they get these things done sooner. It's not ideal that they take as long as they do. So, I think it's easy to sit back and say, well, then just get them done sooner. But there's obviously something that holds these things back. I got to assume it's more on the 49ers side of the house because they are a team that traditionally this process takes a long time. So that being said, he says that they've learned their lessons and would prefer to get things done sooner. All right, we'll see. He also confirmed that they have been fielding calls for BA. But they field calls for a lot of players. So not a big surprise. But yes, they have been fielding calls for BA. He was asked specifically, did you allow BA's agent to shop BA? To that question, he didn't want to give an answer. He said that he was focused on BA being a 49er. So to me, that means he probably has given him permission to see what his value is. I don't think that's the end of the world. I listen, you've heard me say from the beginning, I don't believe BA is going anywhere. I still believe that he will be a 49er at the end of this draft process. That being said, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if Brandon Ayuk has been given permission to reach out and see what his value is. Now, it could be really bad if BA's value to somebody else is around 30 million and the 49ers are at 25. Yeah, that could go pretty bad for the 49ers. It could also go bad for Brandon Ayuk. What if teams are only willing to give up a second round pick and pay him $25 million? Maybe that could be a scenario that works out in the 49ers' favor. But I think having Brandon Ayuk know what his value is to other teams, I think having the 49ers know what his value is to other teams might make this process speed up quite a bit after the draft. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, think about it from this aspect. The reason that Armstead's not on the team anymore is because he was given similar permission, found out that there was a market out there that was much better than what the 49ers were offering. Remember, the 49ers wanted him to go from around $18 million this year down to $6 million. It turns out other teams were willing to pay a lot more than that. And so Armstead ended up with the Jaguars. Now, I think the 49ers have a good sense of what Brandon Ayuk is worth on the open market. I think that Brandon Ayuk has a good sense of what he's worth on the open market. TJ Hushmanzada, who trains Brandon Ayuk, came out today and said, hey, I talked to BA. BA does not want to leave San Francisco. He just wants to get paid. It's that simple. He just wants to get paid. And if he can get paid and stay in a 49er uniform, I'm sure that is the preference. But his number one preference is to get paid. So, that being said, again, I think BA stays a 49er. He also talked about the draft and some strategy. He said that there are 170 players on the 49ers board that they deem as draftable. There are 22 players that they believe have first round grades. So you do the math. 22 players there at pick 31. There's a possibility that all 22 of the players that they have first round picks on or first round grades on are no longer available at pick 31. So what would you do in that scenario? Well, one thing I've been talking about for about 3 weeks now is trade back. Listen, it would suck from the standpoint that I'm only going to be live on day one because on night 2, where you have the second and third round, I have to coach my son's football team. So I'm not going to be available on night 2. It would definitely suck from a content aspect for the 49ers to trade out of round 1, pick up more draft capital, and not have a single pick. But from a fan perspective, and from a perspective of if I was running the team for 3 weeks, I've been saying trade out. If it's possible, if it is possible, trade out. Because I believe players at 31 through, say, 40, there's some good talent available, but also there are a lot of scenarios, and we've played some of those out on the channel, that would result in me not being comfortable necessarily taking anybody at 31. But if those players were at 37, 38, 39, 40, I'd feel very good about getting those same players. Especially if I could pick up, let's say, another third round pick. And now I can take that new third round pick that I've received and either package it with my current third round and move up, or package it with the second round and move up again from pick 63. That would be ideal. So for me, if that scenario is there at pick 31, then I would trade back. And the 49ers and John Lynch talked about that today. He said, I'm willing to be flexible. We've traded up before. We've traded back before. We've stood pat before. We are open to all scenarios. And as draft week moves along, he will be making those calls to see who's willing to move up and who's willing to move back, and just see where everybody's head's at. And that's what all these teams are doing. Pretty much every team come draft night is going to have a good idea of who is willing to do what.